Are you gonna be? How you doing, man? Are you gonna be walking around on the stage? Okay, good. We want to make sure this is live stream. Okay. So we want to make sure.
Testing 1, 2. Attention everyone in the room right now. We're going to ask that everyone please get their lunch. We get ready to start the next presentation, the next speaker. So we want to make sure that everyone get their lunch. Make their way back to the seating area for the next presentation in about how many minutes? In about 2 minutes. So you have 2 minutes to make sure you get your lunch. Head back to your seat so we can get ready for this fabulous presentation we have coming up next week.
Hello, everyone. Folks grabbing their lunch will make their way to the seats. I have our next person. Our next keynote is Southern Strong, an analysis of displacement amongst LGBTQIA college students, brought to us by Brianna Simone Jones, PhD. Brianna is the Audrey Lord Visiting Professor of Queer Studies at Spelman College. We've got a couple of Spelman folks today. She is the editor of award-winning Mounts of Rain, an anthology of Black lesbian thought. The 2023-2024 Schoenberg Scholar in Residence curated and also curated the Pleasure of Rebellion exhibition and currently researches Black lesbians as central architects of Black queer studies and currently authoring Black lesbian aesthetics. Please welcome Brianna Simone Jones. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. So I have kind of a bifurcated title. So part one of my keynote remarks will be related to the work that I do at large at Spelman College. And then I will discuss a really interesting project that the executive director of the LGBTQ Institute, Tim West, and I are attempting to advance. I want to begin by thanking my colleague and interlocutor, Tim West, for the gift of the invitation and the opportunity to share more about our collaborative work in the U.S. South and beyond. Drawing from the website, I understand that this year's IGNYTE gathering seeks to do myriad things, such as innovate leadership development models that reflect the complexity of our identities and the urgency of our times, generate cross-generational dialogue that fuels collaboration, wisdom sharing, and solidarity,
nurture authentic relationships that uncover untapped resources and strengthen the LGBTQ+ community, yield a new generation of change makers to lead in civil and human rights across every sector, train informed allies to advocate for communities historically excluded from decision-making, and engage a bold network of intergenerational leaders committed to collective liberation and mutual accountability. I'd like to focus my remarks on the conference's last imperative, which is to engage a bold network of intergenerational leaders committed to collective liberation and mutual accountability by invoking the ancestral spirit of Black lesbian poet Audre Lorde. In 1977, on December 28th, Audre Lorde delivered her first prose essay, The Transformation of Silence into Language and Action, at the Modern Language Association. Just 1 month before her presentation at the Modern Language Association, on November 11th, 1977, Lorde's gynecologist called her and stated that she had a tumor in her breast. Initially, Lorde's invitation to participate on this panel with other feminists like Adrienne Rich was supposed to be connected to the theme of lesbian invisibility in contemporary literature. But after this cancer diagnosis, Lorde tarried with and intentionally thought about her own connections to her self-imposed silence, being a Black lesbian poet, the life and death of it, her own fear, and her own silences. From this reckoning, that Lorde's biographer, Alexis DeVoe, remarked as one of the most revelatory experiences of Lorde's life after coming out as a lesbian in 1972. It not only birthed the essay, The Transformation of Silence into Language and Action, but also the Audre Lorde questionnaire that materialized decades later, created by Didier Victor, a poet and former professor of mine. I wanted to ground this space first by asking everyone to take 1 minute to sit with this question, which Lorde asked herself nearly 50 years ago in 1977. What are the tyrannies you swallow day by day and attempt to make your own until you will sicken and die of them, still in silence? So we'll take 1 minute, sit with yourself, ask the question, and then you'll share with the neighbor next to you a second question that I'll pose, starting now. All right, turn to your neighbor, like in church, but not really, and ask if you have been socialized to fear or to respect fear more than our own needs for language and definition. Answer the question, what is the worst that could happen if I tell this truth? So share the tyranny of silence with your neighbor, and then ask each other, what is the worst that could happen if you tell the truth? 10 more seconds. Can I have 2 volunteers share? Can I have 2 volunteers share what they spoke about? All right, so we're going to come back as a group. Yeah, can you address, yeah, we
Hi, I'm Vic Williams. I used to make pronouns. My partner and I spoke about, we both had some similar upbringings in like very religious households. And we had encounters where people around us have a fear of us undergoing consequences from the outside community, outside of our household. They would tell you, when we were trying to speak our truth, I hear you, but shh. I was trying to flag down, trying to bring on that silence, and it was out of them trying to protect us, or in our own best interest, like, we're trying to help you so you don't undergo consequences. But at that same time, those were the people that we seriously trusted and really wanted to lean into for support, silencing us. So they were extensions of that tyranny, even though they didn't really realize it.
have one more person.
I'm Jason Arnold. I use pronouns he, him, and one of the things we were talking about is the tyranny of mental health in the gay community, or the queer community, because what a lot of people don't, at least straight people don't realize, is we have duality, that we have to exist in both their world and our world, and their world means a lot of times having to sacrifice who we are. Even, we were talking about my career in corporate America, is that I've been told, can't be too gay. It's going to block your possibilities for advancement. But it's that we don't get the mental health that we need and the damage that is caused by being forced to not be who you are. So I don't think there's a lot of resources for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll come back to the statement. So, as I was introduced, I'm a professor of queer studies in the Comparative Women's Studies department at Spelman College. So much of my work is invested in Black life and Black queer people, with critical or keen attention to Black lesbians in the field of Black lesbian studies. I study those who are situated at what one might call the underside of modernity, those whose systems of knowledge have been rendered invisible because of axes of power like anti-Blackness, white supremacy, and heterosexism. Becoming a professor and deepening my understanding of epistemology, knowledge production, and Black study, I became crucially aware of how intentional the gaps and silences related to Black queer people were during my formative years of higher education. There was a kind of mirroring relationship between the quotidian or everyday violence that Black lesbians were experiencing in their daily lives and the insistence of our erasure in educational institutions. Reflecting back, I do not know why the erasures were so enduring, but I do know that rendering our intellectual work as unintelligible becomes the very justifiable reason for our extermination. Hence why Israel began very early on bombing libraries and universities in Gaza. If the establishment can destroy history, then they can say that we never existed at all. For the past 16 years of my academic career, I've been drawn to the work of Black lesbians because for me, they supply us with a praxis that offers recourse against the anti-Black world that we are all inhabiting. My work maps intergenerational continuums between Black lesbian writers because I understand that the precarity we are facing right now is actually not unprecedented at all. And so many Black folks who came before us have traversed these same perilous times. So these questions from Audre Lorde about the tyranny of silence have become a litmus for me, where and when I enter any room, professional, personal, or otherwise. In doing this vital work of seeking freedom, perhaps her queries can also be a measure for you as you go out and do your work. Beyond my work in the Academy this afternoon, I'm happy to share a collaborative project that the Executive Director of the LGBTQ Institute, Tim West, and I are investing, tentatively titled Southern Strong, an analysis of displacement amongst LGBTQIA+ college students. As I stated, I work at a women's college, and although it is a great institution, our students graduate carrying more debt than many of their counterparts who have graduated from other higher ed institutions. More than that, I also understand that students are entering into the workforce during the height of global fascism, the rollback of initiatives connected to equity, and we're also situated in the center of a recession. The times could not be more precarious. As of today, more than 12% of Black college graduates are unemployed. And across the U.S. South, the LGBTQIA+ youth and young adults are increasingly vulnerable to economic instability, systematic and systemic displacement, and discriminatory legislation. In an effort to identify and mitigate these issues, Tim and I are working to advance and also seeking additional funding for Southern Strong. This exploratory research project investigates patterns of displacement in employment and housing among LGBTQIA+ young adults on college campuses, with a focus on trans and non-binary experiences across 8 states. We examine displacement in various ways beyond economic and housing impacts, and will consider myriad forms of displacement on college campuses, including but not limited to erasure in classroom spaces, the dissolution of affinity groups, and supportive social spaces like LGBTQ+ campus centers. The primary focus of this research is LGBTQIA+ college students. Within this population, we are particularly interested in the unique experiences of students with precarious or vulnerable immigration statuses, and how holding an LGBTQIA+ identity influences your postgraduate planning. This kind of research is necessary because upon graduation, LGBTQ+ folks experience and face different forms of displacement, unable to return home, and also are thrust into broader social and economic systems where employment and housing security remain precarious. In addition to LGBTQ+ students who are immigrants and whose citizenship status are in jeopardy, particularly in the current environment, they experience increased vulnerabilities. Existing data highlights these vulnerabilities, particularly in relation to job discrimination and unstable living conditions. So today, we are seeking college students to participate in our focus groups, which are designed to assess the key economic challenges and systematic barriers aligned with displacement and employment amongst LGBTQIA+ young adult communities and others. So if possible, please email us at the emails above. We are seeking additional funding, but we'll be compensating folks who plan to take the survey. As I stated before, not only are new black graduates facing sort of a 12% unemployment rate, it's half the amount for our counterparts. So the number is growing quite rapidly, and as of October, it's at 12.4%. So if you email us, we'll contact you, and we're seeking actually over 1,000 students across PWIs and HBCUs. So if you could also recommend someone, please let us know. I'll end there. Thank you for your time.
Y'all still with us? Let me hear you now. Y'all still with us? It's Pride Weekend. It's Pride Weekend, y'all. It's Pride Weekend. We're going to keep rolling on with our presentation, hoping that everybody had a chance to get their lunch, and hope that everybody enjoyed their lunch. And we're going to bring up the next presentation. Actually, this next presentation is going to be brought to you by the legendary Nason. Nason in the house. Let's give it up for him. I don't have anything for him and stuff like that, but I know the acting CEO is present, Dr. R. Wayne Woodson. Is he here? I just saw him just a few seconds ago. Somebody's going to actually go get him. And we're going to be talking about Wellness is a Community Effort track. And I think he's going to bring up some of his team members from Nason, which is actually in the house. So there they are. Come on up. Let's give them a hand. And I'm going to let Woodson tell you about the next presentation that they're going to be doing. Stay tuned.
Good afternoon, everyone. So I just got off a flight, literally, like a couple hours ago. I was in Houston. A little bit about me. I am the acting CEO of Nason. I believe in interactive approaches. I have been at a lot of conferences the last 6 months, and I'm kind of tired of people talking at me. So that's not my approach, right? So today we're really going to be talking about funding the work. We know we're in a crisis, we know all of that. So at some point we have to stop talking about the fact that we're in a crisis and figure out how we move forward. I literally just flew back here from Houston at the National Minority AIDS Council Southern Regional Meeting. The names get longer and longer. And so that was some of the work we're doing. My team is here. Malachi works in our prevention department. He is over our PrEP programming. Dempris runs our CRIP fellowship. They're here in Atlanta this week. Zari, I call her my housing guru. All things housing. Our fellows are walking around here. Our linkage manager is out there, our prevention manager. But it's important that we add public health to these spaces. Next month, we're actually adding public health to the Association for World Diaspora History, the names belong in St. Louis. So, baseline conversation. How many of you understand how your agencies, programs, institutions are funded? Raise your hands. Oh, wow. How many of you are primarily funded with grants? Right. How many of you have individual giving? How many of you understand why it's important for you to know that? Right. So 90% of the work is funded by the money we bring in, right? And when we don't have money, we have to start making cuts. I don't call them cuts at Nason, we call them fiscal adjustments. Makes it sound better. And so it's critical that everyone, and this is a conversation I had with about 100 people yesterday, that everyone at the organization understands how it's funded. Everyone at the organization should understand how it's funded. Why? Because even as frontline workers or people in other fields and all of that, you might need to know the information for you to make the best decisions for yourself. An organization, I tell people this all the time, we are always much loyal to the places we work than the places we work are loyal to us. I worked in the higher ed space and HBCUs, and we will work to the bone, but if there's an adjustment need to be made, they will let you go. Because at the end of the day, the institution, the organization is the most important thing, right? And that's why it's important. Because if you understand that your organization is funded like a lot by 95% grants, and you keep hearing that 9% of grants have been cut, you might want to have a conversation with yourself about, is this the time for me to find another place to work? Do I need a part-time gig? And we believe in Nason being fully transparent. Now, sometimes our staff gets a little frustrated because we can't always provide all the details, but we do believe in providing them the information they need to make the best decisions for themselves. So how many of you understand how fundraising works? Okay, we got a couple of hands. How many of you think you should probably know how fundraising works? Got more hands. How many of you work at places where they share that information with you? And the hands got fewer. Right. So, historically, most organizations, how many of you work for like small nonprofits or community organizations, churches, institute? Most small nonprofits started at what we call grassroots, right? They started with a few people with some money who were dedicated to the cause, and they gave the money, and here we are, and now we have a whole organization. That lasts for about 5 months, and then you realize the costs far exceed what the people can give. So what happened historically is that we shifted from a model where we were focusing on cultivating people as those who gave to us, who donated support work. Because it's much easier to spend 4 months writing a grant and getting $1 million than it is to spend 9 months cultivating a person who may only give $50,000. The challenge is that person's giving because they believe in the work. They believe in you, they believe in what you're doing. Those larger organizations are giving because there has to be some return on investment for them, right? Delta gives a lot of money, especially in this city. But their number one thing is, how is that going to benefit us? Are you reaching a new population of people? Your work is wonderful, lovely, we're just so glad you're doing it. But that is not a bearing on whether we're going to give you this money. And those are conversations that a lot of grantors don't want to have. Gone are the days where people are supporting because they care. So in public health, we have a lot of challenges right now. I think most of you have seen the news recently. We've had about maybe $5 or $6 billion in cuts to public health funding. 2 weeks ago, they cut another $2 billion from the HIV funding. I was in a meeting the other day, they're now cutting funding for vaccination programs. So this is where we are. And it's not just public health. Education's being defunded. I had to do a meeting a few weeks ago with a group of rural medical people who've lost all their funding for medical services in these small communities because they've defunded a lot of the federally qualified health centers. And one of the women was sharing me that the nearest doctor to their town is 80 miles away. So she said, we had come to the terms either we need to move from where we lived our entire lives or we're not going to be able to get care. Because by the time the ambulance gets to us 80 miles and then takes us 80 miles to a doctor, if this is a crisis, we're not going to make it. And that's where we are across the board. The challenge is, this is an opportunity to never get here again. To really rethink how we fund our programs, how we do the work. What is our impact? Are we really impacting people? When I did my PhD, the first thing my research professor asked is like, who cares? Are you doing work that people care about and need, or are we doing work that we just like and we think is a great cause? Are there, as is the case sometimes in Atlanta, 40 or 50 organizations doing that same work that we don't partner with, that we gatekeep, that we don't build relationships with, and we're all fighting for the same funds? Are we relying on the federal government to fund our work and not ask the people we serve? How many of those worker agencies actually give to the agencies or the company? And this is not any specific culture. This is across the board. This city has already seen 2 organizations I know of close in the last 6 months. Most of it is funding related. So grants are great, wonderful, I believe in them, we have a lot of them in our organization. But more important is building relationships with people. That's what's going to sustain us. You never know who people know. I say all the time, I moved to Augusta, I took a big job in Augusta. The wealthiest family in Augusta, the head of that family, I didn't know who she was. She wears those Catholic school jumpers and turtlenecks. I just always spoke to this woman. Little did I know, she's the head of the wealthiest family in all of the Savannah River area. But you never know who people are. And it's not just a money thing, it's a resource thing. One of the good things that we try to do effectively in NASM is build partnerships to serve people that we can. The solution is not to try to be all things to all people. You're gonna burn yourself out, your organization's gonna pretty much fail, people are gonna be exhausted. Decide what you do well, and then decide who you can partner with that has the same standards that you do that can do the other stuff. Sometimes people find a partner and then they send the people there, and the care is not what they would have gotten with you, the service is not what they would have gotten with you, and it's your fault. They're not gonna blame the place you sent them, they're gonna blame you. So it's important that we build those relationships. You never know when you're gonna need someone. I have a separate work cell, and most people in there are business only, and they don't have access to me on a personal level for a reason. But when I call those people on that phone, the answer is 99.9% yes. People fund, people support people. If you are at an organization, whatever it may be, the people are going to support you as an individual. They might like the work and they might like the thing and the things, but at the end of the day, they're going to support you. So your reputation often gets intertwined with the reputation of wherever you work. So what are some challenges you think may happen in fundraising? Just a conversation, some challenges. Don't everyone jump up at once. Yes?
Trying to collaborate with people that hold the same standards that everyone has.
Okay, yes. What are some other challenges?
People say that they'll support you, but you don't see any signs of it, and they just don't.
That's a big
Hold
one.
up their end of the bargain, or they make false promises.
That's a big one. Yes.
I think a lot of us, even myself, are middle-aged, have like maybe an internal sense of shame or we're not worthy of the funding, and so it makes it really hard for me to stand in front of you and say, hey man, I need $100,000 by Christmas, right? And to do that in this room feels really comfortable, but this room may not have that money. But to go over there to the aquarium tonight, or to the mayor's thing last night and say it, it's like, no man, I'm not worthy enough, I'm gonna go home and hang out with my friends.
And I think that's important. We talk about stigma in terms of caring for people and all, but there is stigma in many areas. So Shane, I think that's good. Who else? Challenges.
Unclear deliverables.
Okay. Expound. Explain.
Like, I think the fundraising, for some people, they don't see the end goal. Like, sometimes they get asked for money, but they don't understand what it's going towards and how their resources are necessarily helping fulfill that goal.
So let me pause there, and I'm going to address these 2 points first. Yes. The other thing that some people do is put these really huge numbers in these applications to try to get the money. If you are writing for HIV funding in the city of Atlanta and you say you're going to test 25,000 people and you're going to find 900 positive people, and I'm reading that, there is absolutely no way in 12 months you're going to meet those deliverables. You have to set realistic goals. I mean, Nathan is 35 years old, and we have a national and international footprint, and we're not testing 25,000 people. But you do have to set realistic deliverables that should align with the strategic plan that your organization has, that your department has, so that you're allowed to work. But that's a really good one. Clear deliverables, because that's what they're going to base your money on. And the shame thing, fundraising is difficult for some people because they don't like asking for money. The money's there, and if you don't ask for it, it's still going to be there, right? If you do the research to target who you're going after, more than likely they're aligned with your work. The other thing is, everyone asks for money. Whether it's, my children often ask for money on a regular basis with no shame at all. I was on a flight today and they were asking for money via the Cash App. So let's remove the shame as much as we can and use our work to empower us. If you're really passionate about that work, you can get people to listen. Like, I am really passionate about two big things, HBCU education and public health. I can sell both of those and pretty much get what I want. The other thing is the people on the other end, in most cases, I would say about 90% of the cases, want to help. You just have to ask. I don't know if any corporation or foundation is gonna be like, hey, Zara, we got $2 million, you want it? But the $2 million is sitting there. And if you don't feel comfortable, take, I call them a mediator, take someone with you that does. Most of my initial introductions to people, even when I've set up the meeting, I bring someone who knows them with me. Because that takes down that initial wall that they would have if I came by myself. If I'm dealing with, political figures, I often take a person that is aligned with that individual's political views, do with that what you will. Because that tears down a wall that they would have if I came by myself. But there is no shame in asking for money if you're doing good work. The other thing that's critical is that you have the foundational documents to ask for the money. If your budget is $10,000 a year, you cannot ask somebody for $500,000. They may be aligned to work and all of that. If you don't have an audit, there are just some things you cannot apply for. If you don't have a fiscal team in your office, there's just some things you cannot apply for. But there's no shame in getting a lot of small grants, a lot of individuals. We had a president that funded the initial part of his entire campaign on crowdfunding, asking all the people for $10 and raised over $2 million. And then it's like, oh, now you have a campaign. I can ask 1 million people for $1, or I can ask one person for $1 million in a day, I still have $1 million. Other challenges. The one about people not meeting your expectations, I don't really know how we can solve that. People just sometimes don't even know what they're supposed to be doing. What are some other challenges? You seem like you have one back here in the green and white shirt. Yeah.
What about not making enough? Did somebody already say not meeting your goal for the fundraiser?
No, nobody said not meeting the goals. We did address deliverables. It is important to meet the goals, but if you can justify why you haven't met them, most funders will give you some grace. Now, you can't say you're going to serve 2,000 people and you serve like 30, because they will also send you a lovely letter requesting their funds back. Like, please reimburse the funds that you received from us due to the fact that you did not meet the goals you set up, and we will reallocate that funds to someone else. Someone, yes?
I was gonna say, that follow through, make sure that you're actually asking the question for what you need from them. That's something that people find challenging.
How many people actually collect data when they're doing things? This is always a scary question. Yeah. If it's not documented, it didn't happen. You can say you did all these things and you have no documentation. And it can't be a sign-up sheet with all the signatures in the same color pen with the same handwriting. I've been on both sides of the funding stream, and you'd be amazed at some of the things people submit. We did 9 workshops. All the names are the same. They're all written in the same pen and the same handwriting. But you had a sign-in sheet. Yes. Yes.
Sometimes there's delays in funding.
Delays.
Or reimbursement models that not every organization can necessarily fill.
Reimbursements. Most federal grants are reimbursement grants, and it's the most horrible thing because some people don't read those contracts. There's a clause in most of them that says, even if you are behind in repayment, you cannot stop services. So if you are not able to front all the money for that grant, you probably should not apply for it. When I got to we won't discuss how far behind they were, but we had a grantor that was well over 6 figures behind in payments. And if you can't maintain that capacity yourself, don't try to get those funds. Yes?
Gaining long-term donors who are donating monthly donations over a long period of time.
And that is a model that most of us should be following. Like Nathan will launch this month our new membership program, but those are the donors you want. I'll get you in 1 second. When I worked at the Florida Orchestra, there was a nice elderly lady who came and sat in my office 2 or 3 times a week. No one really paid her any attention. She only gave $50 a month. And I was like, well, she can sit there, I'm working, and she doesn't mind if I ignore her, and she's living her best life. When she passed, she bequested that orchestra $250,000. They didn't even know the little old lady was a millionaire. And I only found out because I had long since left because she put a little note on the thing with her attorney that said, for the black man who used to let me sit in his office at the orchestra. Now, I'm not going to be the beneficiary of any of that funding, but whoever is there now will be. But so you never know, and you have to build those relationships. If someone gives you $25 a month, and we're about to start asking those people we serve at Mason to be donors as well, that can build up. And those are unrestricted funds that are not tied to specific things you have to do with that money. A lot of these grant funds are tied to specific things and do not give you flexibility. So if your lights are about to get shut off, they might get shut off, but you can pay the staff over here in this department. So those kind of donors are critical.
Kind of coming off of the same thing, a diverse group of donors, if you have self-limiting belief about who you can reach out to. So I do corporate fundraising, so I'm not only going to reach out to the top 10 on the HRC corporate index. I'll reach out to everybody, and capacity might be different, the response might be different, but I'm not going to limit myself in who I ask. They tell me what they need.
Right. So, good point. Don't always go after the big corporations. You know, here, everyone's going after Delta and Coca-Cola. Well, Delta and Coca-Cola pretty much know who they're going to give their big dollars to every year. But we have a lot of companies in this city that like giving away money in these last 3 months because they have to get these tax credits. This is the perfect time to ask people, this is the perfect time to ask foundations, corporations for money because they need those tax credits. But don't always go after the big people. So Delta supports us, but Delta supports our conference with flight discounts. Saves people money, it saved us a lot of money last year, but they don't give us tangible dollars. So sometimes in-kind donations can help as well.
I think another area is stewardship, making sure that we're saying thank you. So many times that we take the money and we never say thank you, but then we go back and ask for more money, and they remember, you didn't say thank you for the last one.
How many of you have loaned somebody money in your life? Oh, that's it? Wow, I'm gonna give my kids some of you all's contact. It makes a difference when you say thank you to someone. And thank you is not the follow-up report that's required. Or if you see the people out, be like, hey, Dr. Woodson, I say thank you so much for that support you gave us last month. Because then when your name rolls across the desk again, the people will remember. Or what has happened some to us recently, they've given our information to other people who are giving money away that we would have never known, had no access to. Because like they're good stewards of the money and they respond, and so that's really important. It also goes to cultivation. You cannot walk up to someone and be like, hey, I need $200,000. You have no relationship, no previous connection to the people. A lot of people write these blanket grant applications. I can tell you, I've been on the other side. If we don't know who you are, more likely we put that to the side on the first round and go to the people that we know. Good, bad, indifference. People have a lot of time.
So that bridges into one I've been sitting here thinking about, which is first year, right? Like if you are starting a program first year and maybe you don't have the relationships or you don't have the data, that is like just a huge challenge. Even if you have data from other programs you might be running, that might not fit into the grant proposal or even pass.
So, we do it for about 5 pages now. Look for a fiscal agent. So you may not be able to apply, but there may be an organization that can. Ask them if they'll be a fiscal agent. Now, most of them charge between 10 to 15%, depending on the grant. Ours is much less. It's under 10. Especially now because we're taking on extra risk with this administration if we are fiscal agents, right? But look for a fiscal agent. So what that person does is apply for all the stuff on your behalf, and then the money passes to that organization to fund you. It helps, especially if you're looking at large grants, or if there's a grant you want and you know someone, see if someone will partner with you. We got a large grant this year. We partnered with 2 other trans organizations, and it worked out great. It's a win-win situation. But fiscal agent is a good way to get grants. And usually, once you get 1 or 2 grants with an organization with a fiscal agent, they will then fund you because you have a track record after that. Questions, other questions? I like questions. This is a good, easy group, yes.
I think in some cases, the funders themselves are just not amicable people. So this idea of like potentially going back and saying thank you, or like trying to ground those in some cases, you're doing that to people who are like sometimes voting against your efforts, literally, who are lifting up things that the press is lifting up. And so how do you manage, or what is the thought track of choosing not to build a relationship and go out the money because of how they're showing up, or coaching them, partnering with them, that organization in a way that's, if you're misaligned from how we're showing up, we need you all to come to the table as well, so that it is a partnership and not just a transactional, here's the money, go be great. I hope that makes sense.
It does.
I know a lot of folks don't, and this kind of stops some good question earlier around like, it don't always feel good to talk to funders, and they don't necessarily show up in heart capacity for that to be a better platform for you to exist fully, even with someone else coming in. So I know how critical it is to make sure we're strategizing around funders, building that stewardship, cultivating, and you still kind of end up with the upper echelons who are sitting across from you and can in some ways start to get into this nepotism conversation.
So I just had a conversation similar to this with someone else, right? A lot of organizations are making adjustments right now under this administration. And the conversation is, should we be doing that? And I think the solution is the same for both. Sometimes you have to do what's needed to get what you want. And I can say that because I can. And that's the reality. Most people who work on the giving side do care, but a lot of them are stretched so far that they come off as distant and detached. And then some of them, let's be realistic, some of them have given money organizations and been burned. Like they've given for specific things that people stole their money and did other stuff with. But sometimes, you know, my grandmother, like, son, it's just nice to be nice and you're not doing it for the other person. What I will say is when you send emails and any kind of communication to an organization as a funder, it is in your file. And whoever reviews that the next time has access to all that information too. And those people may not be there all the time. You know, grantors switch jobs a lot. But I think it's more important, like we have what we call the nascent experience, and it's a holistic approach to care and interaction with people. It goes from fundraising all the way down to the people who clean our building. And so we do those things because it's just who we are, not because they care. And we've broken down some bridges with some people who were just kind of anti-us. I mean, it's also how in this climate we can get companies who've removed DEI to fund to a primarily LGBT organization. And so you always have to be true to what your brand is, and which leads to the other side of the conversation. You need to know who you are. And all money is not good money. Hello. I mean, we are very strategic. If you are anti-black, anti-gay, anti, more likely I'm not gonna ask you for any money because I know on the other side of the giving, we're gonna have challenges. And I am not really one that's gonna back down from a challenge. I'm gonna send 1-0 email. Now, it might be the 6th revision. But yeah, so I think but that's important. If you care, if you are a caring organization, you're a caring person, thank people for you. Not for them. We can't respond to ignorance with ignorance. Somebody else had a hand up. Other questions? Yes.
Could you share some of these strategies that you use for fundraising under challenging times that we are passing through now? For example, that God even use some concepts like queer, like transgender, like gender, like human rights. Like how do we raise some fundings for LGBTQ plus issues, but not necessarily using those? How can we not use the concepts?
So, I'm gonna be a little direct I'm always direct. Black people and LGBTQ people have had to do this since the foundation of our needs, right? When we first started raising money as black people, we could not put in there we were black. They were not gonna fund that. When the LGBT community started raising money, we had to use certain words and we couldn't use certain words. So really what we're doing is reverting back to the grassroots foundation of all the work we're doing. We just had to detrans Nation. We had to go through all our social media and detrans everything. We've spent the last 3 years building up the trans side of the agency. And so the first people I talked to, all my trans employees, like, how's this gonna impact you? How do we approach this? I know it's not gonna feel good, but we also are fiscal agents for trans organizations. Like, how do we do this? The trans members myself, like, just take the stuff out. Like, remove it. Because that's not identifying who we are, those are some words. And that's where we are. We're gonna have to cut the words, but you can, is this thing recording right now? Cut this off for 1 second, because I don't want this part of it. Because we do get a lot of funding. You can put that on a second if you want to.